Hopefully it'll stay. All right, so just so that you guys remember a little bit about what we were doing on Friday. And for those of you who weren't here, this is where we were at, was towards the bottom of that page, or right towards the middle, I guess, of that page where it says check for understanding. And what we're doing for this is we're trying to figure out or ask you a question of what times what times what, because when there's a 3 in the crack right here, and I'm circling that 3, when there's a 3 in the crack right there, it's looking for what number times by itself 3 times gives you negative 27. So first of all, if it's a negative, the answer is going to be negative. Does anybody know what number multiplied by itself 3 times gives you 27? So like, is it 1 times 1 times 1, or 2 times 2 times 2, or 3 times 3 times 3, or 4 times 4 times 4? You already have the answer, so shh. What is 1 times 1 times 1? 1. What's 2 times 2?
4.
Times 2? 8. So not 27, right? What's 3 times 3? 9. And what's 9 times 3? 27. So is that our number? So we're looking for, when there's a 3 in the crack right here, you're looking for 3 of the same number. So what multiplies by itself 3 times to give you this would be 3. So that's why that was a negative 3. On the next one, there's a 5 in the crack with a 32. So this is asking you what number multiplied by itself 5 times gives you 32. So 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1, right? What's 2 times 2? 4 times 2? 8 times 2? 16 times 2 is 32. So how many 2's did I multiply together then? 5. And since there's a 5 in the crack, one of the other things that we did, for those of you who are gone, we wrote a 5 like that, but then put 2 to the 5th like this. Do you remember me doing that a little bit on Friday? I know it seems like forever ago, but it was only a couple days. And if these two pieces, Mises, match right here, then that cancels those out, and you're left with just the number 2. That's another way to look at it. Okay? Then, on the next check for understanding that we have 9 to the 1/2 power. Now, when it's a 1/2 power, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really care for fractions at all if I can't help it. Okay? So one of the things that happens is this number down here, that's in the bottom of the fraction, is the number that goes in the crack of the radical. So that would be a 2 that goes there. This 2 goes right there. The base number, the 9, goes underneath it. And the top number gets written out here like that. So what it's asking you to do for this problem, it is saying 9 to the 1/2 power, but it's really just asking you for what's the square root of 9. So when there's a 2 in the crack, you're looking for, if there's nothing in the crack for that matter, you're looking for what number multiplied by itself gives you 9. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. So my answer to this is 3. And again, if you want me to, I could write it like I did the last one. I could go like this and put a 2 here, and this is 3 squared. And if these match, then they cancel each other out, leaving you just the 3 left over, if that makes sense. And the last check for understanding that was there, we have 4,096 to the 1/4 power. That means I put a 4 in the crack, and a 4,096 goes underneath. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? This is what I forgot to do. This is what I forgot to do. Just in case. Just in case. Okay, so again, when there is a 4 in the crack like that, then I'm looking for 4 of the same number. So 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1 still, so it's not 1. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. That's not big enough, right? 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81, so that's not quite big enough. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. And 64 times 4 is 256, so not quite. What are we at, 5? 5 times 5 is 25. Times 5 again is 125. Times 5 again is 625. So right now, I'm still not high enough. 6 times 6 is what? 36. Times 6 is another number, which if I just use my calculator, 216. Times 6 is 1,296. So not quite high enough yet. 7 times 7 is 49. Times 7 again is 343. Times 7 is 2,401. Ooh, we're getting closer, I think. Feels like forever. 8 times 8 is 64. Times 4 is 512. Times 8 is 4,096. So we have a winner. So really that is 8 to the 4th power. And when those end up matching, they cancel and you're just left with the number 8. So on those types of questions, that's what we're doing for those. Now, do you want me to do any more that are like that I can make up that are not on that sheet? Would you like me to do any more like that are not on that sheet, or just keep with what's on the sheet? You tell me. What do you think? Just keep it? Okay. So then, the next part of the core concept that's on there has let a to the n Here's Mrs. Bings, guys. That's what we got today.
I can hardly see throughout the mountains.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. There you go.
Oh my.
So, 2, 4, 6 that are in here right now. 1 went into the bathroom and hasn't came back. So we'll see where he ended up. Out of the 15 we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
So, we're just going through the rest of the notes, just so you know where we're at. Shouldn't take too much longer, then they're going to get some time to work.
Awesome.
Okay? All right, so on the next part, where it says core concept, rational exponents, let a to the 1 over n be an nth root of a, and let m be the positive integer. So, on something like that, what they're going to ask you to do for this one, where it says a to the 1 over n, and what they're looking at doing, I'm going to not say 1 over n, I'm going to say m. I think that's supposed to say m over n. Okay, and here's why. Because if you look at the number, or look at the stuff, it says nth root of a, and the m be the positive integer. There's no m in the problem, right? So here's what it's asking you to do. When it has it like that, when it has an m on the top with an n on the bottom, what happens is you put the n in the crack still. So n still goes in the crack of the square root. The base goes underneath, So that still goes there. But then you raise it to the power of m after you get done. So whatever number is on the top, that goes on the outside. And vice versa, if I was just rewriting it. Okay? So on the next one that they have 16 to the 3/4 power. So what I'm going to do to write that is I'm going to put 4 in the crack. The base number stays underneath, goes 16. And then I'm going to raise the whole thing to the 3rd power once I get done. So is everybody comfortable with where I aligned things? The bottom of the fraction goes in the crack. The big number goes underneath. The top of the fraction goes outside. Now, when I simplify this, what I do first is I do the 4th root of 16, which means I'm looking for the same number that multiplies together 4 times to give you 16. So 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So how many of them do I have?
4.
Yeah. So like I was doing on some of those other ones, if I rewrite that as 2 to the 4th like that, if these two numbers match, which we got them to, they cancel each other out, leaving you just what number is left behind if you cancel out the 4s. What number comes out of that then? What number was underneath it? Not a 16 now, but a 2. So this becomes 2 to the 3rd. That's what I need to figure out to finish my answer. So what's 2 times 2?
4.
Times 2.
8.
8. Good job. The next one has 27 to the 4/3 power. So again, the 3 from the bottom goes in the crack. The 27 goes underneath. And where do I put the 4?
You put on the outside.
I put it around the outside, right? Now, 27 can be rewritten as what number to the 3rd power? We've done it a couple times today. What number multiplied by itself 3 times gives you 27? 3. Whole lot of 3s there. So when this matches here, when you get the crack number to match this number, it cancels that out, leaving you just a base number. What's the base number? 3. So now to finish it, we need to do what 3 to the 4th is from around the outside. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81. And that's where your calculator will come in to help you. Okay? Okay, now, just to practice a little bit, I got a 3 in the crack with a negative 125 underneath. So the first thing I want to do is I want to rewrite that to be something to the 3rd power. The reason why is because there's 3 in the crack. Okay? So what times what times what gives you a negative 125? Negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. That's not big enough. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Times negative 2 is negative 8. Not big enough. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. And 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. Not big enough.
Just be 5.
So when we get to the final thing, we end up with negative 5 to the 3rd power. That's the number. So remember, when the crack number matches this exponent number, what do? They cancel out. And you're left with whatever was in the base spot, which is just -5. Good job. The next one, -64 to the 2/3 power. So the first thing is, I don't like fractions any more than you guys do. So I'm going to rewrite it first. The bottom number of the fraction is the cracked number. So what number goes in the crack is 3. What number goes underneath the house? -64. Good job. And what number goes around the outside? The 2. So remember, when we're doing this, we work inside first. So I need to know a number that multiplies by itself 3 times that gives me -64. -1 times -1 times -1 isn't big enough. -2 times -2 times -2 isn't big enough. -3 isn't big enough. -4 times -4 times -4. Yeah, that's it. So this becomes 3 in the crack, -4 to the 3rd power, raised to the outside number of 2. So remember, when these match, they cancel, and you're left with -4 squared. What's -4 squared? What's -4 times -4? 16. Good job. 9 to the 5 halves. Rewrite it first. What number goes in the crack? 2. What number goes underneath? 9. What number goes around the outside? Does anybody know what the square root of 9 is? What times what gives you 9? 3. Good. And what's 3 to the 5th? This is where a calculator is going to help you. Because 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81, times 3 is the magic number. So basically what we need to know is what's 81 times 3. $243. Nice work. Okay, and the last one I'm going to help you do. We've got 256 to the 3/4 power. Again, what number goes in the crack? 4. What number goes underneath? 256. And what number goes around the outside? 3. So then, just like we were doing before, we're going to look for the number that multiplies by itself 4 times to give you 256. It ain't 1. I'll give you that. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. Not quite big enough. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 81. Nope. What's 4 times 4 times 4 times 4? 256. Good. So I'm going to rewrite that with 4 in the crack, with 4 to the 4th power, all raised to 3 that's around the outside. So what happens with the 4s? What happens with the crack number, with the exponent number? What do? They cancel out. And you're left with what number? The 4, the base. Good. And then 4 to the 3rd is what we need to figure out. What's 4 times 4? 16. Does anyone know what 16 times 4 is? 64. And that's our final answer. Okay. Now, there are 2 word problems, but on the assignment I gave you today, that is on big ideas again. That's the nice part. We can use our Chromebooks again. We're not doing worksheets for this one. I did not give you a word problem today. I promise. Okay? So for the rest of the time and tomorrow, because tomorrow, remember, we're short in schedule tomorrow. I'll give you the time to work on 6-1 part 1. Okay? So on big ideas, your assignment is up online already. Okay? It's on 6-1 part 1 or day 1, whatever I called it. Okay? So, again, for those of you guys who were gone on Friday, that's basically what we did. The only other thing that you may have missed would have been problems that look like this. So if you were gone on Friday, I'll do one like this just so that you can see it. When it gives you, and we've already done this one today, but just in case, one of the things that gave you n equals 3, then a equals negative 125. It's asking you this question once this gets over.
I think it's called. Good calling
Just go out there, Nevada. When it gives you n equals 3 and a equals negative 125, it's telling you to do this. Put a 3 in your crack and a 125 or negative 125 underneath, and now figure out what number multiplies by itself 3 times that gives you this. If I scroll back a few slides, you've already done this problem. 3's in the crack, negative 5 to the 3rd power. Those cancel, leaving you negative 5 is my final answer. So when you see problems like that, they're the same thing. This number is telling you what number goes in the crack, and this number is telling you what goes underneath. Okay? So on Friday, if you were gone, that's really what you missed, was just that part. And we did a couple of those other ones. Okay? So with that then, I'll be quiet so you guys can actually have some work time. Make sure you get your stuff caught up, get stuff in. Next week, next Wednesday is a grade check, or next Thursday, sorry, is a grade check day. It's up on, over by the calendar. I put that up there today because I forgot. But the next Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday is a grade check day. So keep that in mind if you have any questions.
Wait, so where did we go for the homework?
Good question. So, Mr. Caleb, are you on Classroom yet?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna put the link to it on Classroom so it's easier for you.